Hey, it's the podcast guy.
Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast.
And there it is! Sutton United of the GM Vauxhall Conference have put out First Division Coventry City, winners of the FA Cup themselves less than 2 years ago. And what a moment to enjoy for the fans of this Surrey side. They've had their moments before, but never one like this. But the whistle goes now. Delight for Sutton United. Sutton United from the National League are through to the last 16 of the FA Cup. No longer English football's perennial non-league club. A 123-year crescendo reaches a new peak for Sutton United, who are promoted to the Football League for the first time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast, another one of the special editions. It's the XU's Views. I'm Mike, and joining today, I'm very delighted to say we've got a Hall of Famer again. It's Tony Rains. Hello, Tony. How are you?
I'm good. Nice to see you.
Lovely. Thank you. Just in a moment, we're going to be talking obviously about your career and your memories at Sutton United over the years. It's going to be condensed because I did promise not to keep you long, and there's a lot to talk about, so it will be maybe on warp speed. But just everyone, if you just don't forget, you can help support with the cost of the show with donations on Patreon, where you get to get episodes like this earlier. For details, it's at suttonpodcast.com, or you drop me a message via email, which is mike@suttonpodcast.com, and at Sutton Podcast on any of the socials. Right, so Tony, we can't really start anywhere without talking about that goal. So let's start there. Talk us through that goal.
It's a good start. The game, the whole thing, or which part?
We'll start with the goal.
The goal. There's a couple of stories that reel off this, and we obviously it's been well. We went out the park before we played them. It was 2:00 kick-off because of the lights. So we were in the park at 10 o'clock in the morning. In the end, we were so desperately poor, Barry just sent us in and say, we'll see how it goes. And he was right as it goes. So if you want to talk through it, well, obviously Max was just attacking from half a yard, as I keep telling him every time I see him. But it was both kind of started with Mickey Stevens. Nigel flicks it on to me, and I'm making a run into it. Now, I'm not prolific, 43, 44 goals tops in 725 games, so not prolific, not really expected to score. Got the header, and it was Brian Kilcline, and probably surprisingly didn't handball it. I don't think he got sent off in those days, but it nestled in the back of the goal, and I was just headed for the cameras, basically.
I mean, that's a very nice story. When I said that goal, I meant the 1983 London Senior Cup final goal, where you scored the winning goal in that cup final.
Yes, well, Dully, yeah.
Yeah,
I can talk you through that one as well.
Yeah.
That was a problem. That was a Ray Sunnock's delivery from in our half, whipping it was a foot right to the back of the goal where John was. He headed it down, and it was the diving. It wasn't quite as good as Peter Osgood's when he scored at Chelsea and Old Trafford, but it was. I kind of lobbed the keeper with the diving header. We won 1-0, and you're quite right. Yes, that's just as important.
That you did mention that one when we spoke briefly at the ladies' match a few weeks ago, when I sort of said, look, there was 720 odd other games, and we will obviously talk about Coventry. There's loads and loads of interviews that you've had about the Coventry, so you're probably sort of not sick to death of it, because I'm sure it's been wonderful to reminisce. But yeah, but for younger fans, give a tiny little potted history of Tony Rains at Sutton. Now, as I said, it's a long history, so don't worry if there's anything you skip out, but just a little potted history of your playing career.
Okay, so I was at Fulham Schoolboys, kind of 14-ish, around about that age, 14, 15, and then got taken on as an apprentice. But prior to that, I was while I was playing in these games before I'd actually signed full terms as such, it's apprentice pro, so it's pro terms. I was playing the Sutton reserves with the unbelievable Kenneth Ireland in charge. So I was in the end playing for Fulham in the morning and then Sutton in the afternoon. So that was the start of my career, really. Then had my another 2-3 years at Fulham. They decided to release me. Fair enough. I think it was a flick of a coin, but as they told me, not as I'm assuming. But they thought they'd be in the same position in a year's time. And it was Bobby Campbell's not with us anymore, and Mike Kelly. And they did think, and Mike Kelly had a big chat with me about it, and they just thought they might be in the same position the following year. And the person which I was trying to dislodge, which would have, when I was 18, it was Tony Gale. Obviously he's boot man, but he was also not a bad player. so it was he moved on eventually, and then, as I say, I went back, having played for the reserves. Then I went back as a semi-pro at Sutton, and that's where that started. And I finished that season. I was playing in the youth, so I was still young enough there, under 18, playing in the reserves, and I think we won the league. People like Martin Clark was there, Michael Joyce. And several others that made distinguished careers. So it was good for us. And once I'd done that year, then I was starting to dip my boots into the first team squad, which I got into. And then 724 games later, that was my last game for Sun.
Blink of an eye. You've mentioned breaking into the side. So I've got that your debut was in January '79, and your brother John had to score a goal to sort of take the shine off your debut a little bit, did he?
His debut, which is a debut, who was I playing as?
I think it was Carshalton in a
in a cup game.
Yeah,
cup game. Yeah, it was. That's right. I think we lost 3-2.
I think it was. Yeah.
But it was we scored with a ball that was. I mean, this is a VAR thing, isn't it? The VAR. It was a yard off the pitch, and they pulled it back in and scored and beat us accordingly. We've had our fun with them since, so we'll let that. But yeah, that was my debut. I remember Ricky Kidd coming up, or it might have been Terry Harris, one of the top senior players, and saying that's not bad for a debut.
So what was it like? I mean, obviously we've mentioned John, much loved, dearly missed by loads and loads of people around the club, fans included, had a long, distinguished career with us. However, I'm an older sibling myself, and I know the younger siblings will have some interesting stories about the older sibling. So, what were the ones that made you complain to mum as a child, or even as an adult, where you had to talk to his supervisor?
That's it, yeah. Probably. To be fair, we had 7 years difference, so our social side for the initial period, and me being 18, being 25, he was doing what he was doing, I think, to get married as well, and this, that, and the other. So our paths didn't cross, and surprisingly, we didn't argue at all, apart from on the pitch. The one of the things we did do on the pitch was to do it on purpose if we weren't playing very well, and we'd have a rap between us, and that would liven everybody else up, but they were trying to calm us down. So there was that. Obviously, his best man at the wedding. Few stories with the tash. Obviously, he called the tash, and he used to sellotape it down overnight. And I had to cut through his bedroom every morning when he was cellophane up with that and this, that, and the other. So that was the funny side, more off the pitch really than on the pitch. We quite gelled on the pitch. And
I spoke to Steve Cuz a few months ago as well. So the three of you were on the pitch at the same time, and apparently used to annoy all the other players by just shouting "Cuz, Cuz, Cuz, Cuz."
Well, it wasn't all the other players. It was just Steve, Bobby Green. So Steve Rogers or myself played right back, Vicky Burko, and then John played, and Bob Greeny was on the left. In the end, we let him come in, and we called him Bruv or Cuz or something like that. But he just got fed up with it. That's good player, Bob. Good player.
So, what are your memories? I mean, we've obviously mentioned the Coventry game, and as I said, there's loads and loads of interviews about the game. But how did that kind of change your life? We saw on the intro video there a few of the clips of that game, because it is still, after all these years, one of the highlights for Sutton United, and one of the things that we're remembered for. Unfortunately, poor Coventry lost to Wrexham on the same day, 34 years to the day that they lost to us. So they must hate the 7th of January. But what's it kind of done to your life, where you sort of, want of a better phrase, dragged out to talk about it sort of every year?
It's certainly not an issue to talk about it every year. When Sutton have their little cup runs and it's their turn, or this era's turn, we were there at the Arsenal game, the Leeds game, the Wimbledon games, and they bring all the players back, and it brings back memories that, and hopefully gets the atmosphere even better. But it was, my friend is John Motson. I talk to him on the phone occasionally, and things like that just wouldn't have happened if we hadn't beaten Coventry on that day. So there's lots of stuff, interview with this game and that game. So it gave you an insight to the TV world a little bit. And as I say, you get a phone call from Motti every now and again. Bad is that?
Not bad at all. A lot of younger fans who know Coventry as they are now, League One Championship side, and it's kind of difficult to explain that at the time. I think they were sort of third or fourth in the league, or they finished that high in the league.
Sorry to interrupt. They were, when we played them, they were fifth, and then when we played Norwich was third.
Yeah, we don't talk about the Norwich.
So no. Well, that's part and parcel of it. They're still playing in front of 24,000, which you wouldn't normally. But to put it in context, I'd say it was something like us beating Everton, who are in the Premiership.
Yeah.
But that's roughly, I would say, at the moment. In fact, Coventry were probably doing a little bit better.
I'd say it's a bit more than that. But because they'd obviously won.
I can't say Fulham, because Fulham are my old side. So, someone like that, Villa, Fulham, that type of side, and they were fifth, and they were doing. And if you run through the side, there was 8 or 9 proper internationals. David Speedy, what a player, and David Phillips and Steve Grozovic. I don't think he got a cap because there was other Keith Shilton and Clements were so good. Kilcline, I mentioned him, and there's a couple of others as well. So their side was lined with international.
Yeah, one of my all-time favourite players, Cyril Regis.
Cyril, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Well, we played against him when he was at Hayes, so we kind of knew a little bit about him, but he progressed very nicely. And they had Ray Houghton on the bench.
Yeah.
So that was a winning goal 2 years prior to that, and that's how football bite you on the proverbial.
Yeah, no, it's very good. I know you mentioned David Speedy. That's one of my abiding memories of when I watched the video. I do love David Speedy's face when he's realised that we've lost. But I mentioned I see it on the video because, like I mentioned to you, that was the season I started supporting Sutton. But because I'd only just started supporting Sutton, I was like, naive 14-year-old, well, I can't get a ticket because that's not fair. Leave it to the true supporters. I'll get one for the next time. And 30 odd years passed before the next time. But never mind, I'm over it. I'm not. So aside from the Coventry and also the other big cup competition, the Anglo-Italian, what's your fondest memories at the time at Sutton? It can be on the pitch, off the pitch, whichever you prefer.
Very, very simple. We beat Getty 2-1. We were meant to go and make the numbers up. We wore the England strip with the FA gave us as we were representing England as such. 2-0 at half time. Probably Southam had scored and John had scored, and it was just like, well, this isn't really meant to happen, but we'll take it. I remember Barry being a bit tongue-tied with it because he didn't really expect us to be 2-0 up. Anyway, we expected a battering. It came on. They scored early on, 20 minutes. And it never came, and we defended it quite well and won the game. I think there was 10,000 there. There was a moat. One of these pitches was a moat round the pitch, and then we went to we showered up and we went to the banquet where the Italian side were meant to receive, and that wasn't the case. And the case was that it was an 8-course banquet, and we had a carafe of wine after and a carafe of wine between every course. So we had fun. Then we were just a really quick story. I think it was someone like Dave Garrett. We went back to the hotel. The bar was just shutting. The shutters were going down. They went, whoa, no. And he went, no, it's shut. And they got a bit of lira out of the pockets and just put it on the table. And the barman just threw the keys at them. So we had a free bar all night. Of which a lot of us paid for the following day. And I guess we went into Rome or somewhere. No, near the Etna or the volcano near there. But we were very hungover, but deserved, I think.
Lovely. So that was kind of the beginnings of being referred to as a golden period. There was obviously the Anglo-Italian. There was a couple of cup ties against Middlesbrough. Obviously the Coventry game shortly afterwards. A few, as we've mentioned, the Senior Cup, Surrey Senior Cup, and the London Senior Cup. A couple of disappointments at Wembley.
There's also an important game where we beat Aldershot. Now, that was the first ever time the Sutton side had beaten a professional side. That was. Now, I know that Aldershot have dropped down, but they were in Div 3 at the time, in old money. And then we drew Peterborough away, who were in Div 4. But such is the likeness of the two. They were much better than Aldershot. And to go there and beat them 3-1. And sounds a bit social all the time, but it was a good journey back again.
Yeah, I think Robin mentioned that one as well. Now, he mentioned there was a sort of an aura of upset after the Norwich game. He wasn't pleased with how it kind of panned out. I know we got beaten and well beaten, but how was it for you? Because from my memory, they paid us a huge amount of respect and they put out a very, very strong side and they didn't give up. They didn't kind of just take their foot off the gas. They just kept going for it. But what was it like in the Norwich game? We had, as you mentioned, 20-odd thousand watching us.
Yeah, there was about, I think it was 26,000. Obviously, you're trying to put into context, of how Norwich would be to Coventry, and they were 3rd and 5th in reverse. So you're thinking it's not going to be much different. But Coventry obviously didn't perform on the day. They had a go. I'm not saying they didn't have a go, but it just didn't perform. And apart from the last 10 minutes, we've done very well, and then we got smashed. But the bar, the post, Nigel Golly, Vernon, Trevor Roffey, done as much as they could, and they did keep it out. So the context was that we should do okay. And I think that's why we ended up getting smashed in the end, because we probably thought we could win that because of come from. And then obviously the tie is over in essence. So it was a damage limitation really. But just one kind of small funnyism or whatever you want to put it is that we went 8-0 down, and Trevor Roffey is one. If you remember, you're a football person, so you know if you've gone 1 down with 10 minutes to go, you rush into the back of the net, get the ball, get it back then. So it slotted the 18. I think, I don't know, it was little Scotch guy, great player, and he'd slotted past Roth from about 12 yards, and Roth turned and ran to the back of the net, and I said to him, Roth, come here. I said, can you see us turning the game around? We're 8-0 down with 10 minutes to go. He went, well, not really. I said, well, slow down and we're going to get smacked by 10. In the end, it ended 8-0 and we didn't concede again. But things took over after that. I'm not sure whether to speak about it. I'll leave that to you, which took everything. Didn't take it, no, I can put that, which overtook our defeat. And that's always been a thing about that game. I don't know how to describe it. It's very, very sad, but showed a man his caliber and resilience and love for someone who was involved in that. I'll leave you to ask the question if you want to.
It's up to you if you want to elaborate. Or
I'm quite willing to talk about it. I don't know how. Yeah, I mean, there was a coach hit the car on the way back and handicapped her to the day she passed. Just 18 months ago, I think it was now. And I can't put into words what labelled Michael Stevens. He stopped his job that next day. When we got back to Sutton, he drove straight back to Norwich because there was no mobiles in those days, so there was phone calls flying around. We had to get all the way back to Sutton. Then he got the phone call on the old phone as such, and then he went straight back up, I think, with his dad. And we held a bit. She was very close to passing away then. We had a vigil somewhere in Nork with our reverend or our pastor or what they are. And she was never the same again, but she pulled round, and in her voice, you could hear the old Jackie. Yeah. She just couldn't be the old Jackie, if you like.
Yeah.
But what a man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do remember, again, I was quite young at the time. I do remember hearing, but didn't have all of the details. And obviously, it's not the kind of thing you ever ask about. So on the pitch, this is a horrible question, by the way, who was like the best player? Who was the one that when you got the ball, you were like, I'm giving it to help us out here?
To score a goal, to
just take off the pressure, to do something.
Right. So it's a really good question. The only thing is, which era would you like it in?
Whichever. Again, this is.
So okay. So
you can
going
get
back.
both, 2, 3.
Well, it's going to be at least 2 or 3. Probably when I started, Ricky, John can go with all of these, right? Because me and John were fine. He was a very good captain when he took over from Larry. He looked after me, looked after everyone. So you can take it as read. John would be in the fray. So I'd say in the first era where I was a young 18-year-old, I'd look for a cuppy Ricky kid.
Mm-hmm.
Rick, prolific goal scorer for us, had a spell at Dagenham and come back, and was renowned for having a half before he left the ground after each game. But one half turned into 2 halves. But we won't do any. But so in that era, Ricky Kidd, crikey, idiot is great mate of mine. Doesn't live far away. We met up the pub, not intentionally, for Christmas. And the story, I mean, I don't know if you've done him, but the story of him keeps going. And he had little spells here and there, but now he's a director and helps out. But the funniest guy I've ever met in my life. Influential Nicky Stevens, should have been a pro. Not sure why. He probably chose not to be a pro. I would imagine probably at those days where you're not paying us enough. I'm getting a couple of quid from Sutton, working in the bank as he was prior to the accident. So many. Gavin Fraser, he lives in Jersey now. He was in the Anglo-Italian Cup final. So if you're going to roll it on a bit and look at Paul McKinnon. How can you not look at Paul McKinnon? I think he still holds the record for a number of goals. And I'll tell you what, all these people are still my friends and still my mates, and we still contact each other. So it's not who I'm thinking of. And I suppose just a glimmer, okay, because he'll have the ump otherwise. Lenny Dennis weren't bad. Len weren't bad at all.
You didn't need to say it, because as soon as you said, "Oh, there'll be otherwise," oh, that's Lenny. I have to admit, Lenny's on Facebook, and I do see a few people chatting, and it's like it's really funny to see all the names popping up. I will admit, so Lenny was from my kind of time when I first started supporting, banging in the goals, and then Paul was always in Sweden, and then he came back a few months into the season, and everyone was always, Paul's back, and I'm like, excuse me, Lenny's done so much work, and I used to always be offended on Lenny's behalf. Didn't get it. I just didn't understand the whole concept. But that was some remarkable transfer business. We sold him to Malmo every year, and then took him back and then sold him again.
It's good business, very good business. They left him there, and I think you've got to put Efenakuku in there. So he was of what he went on and achieved, to play in the Premiership as he did. So that would I've missed out loads. Larry Pritchard. I've got to mention Larry. Superstar of the club, and what a player! And I know for a fact, and they couldn't afford it. I think it's 58 amateur games for England, half of them at Wembley, and then went on to coach and manage. And he went, he played all those games. He was at Wycombe for 3 years as well. So, I mean, there's still loads more I've missed out, but
no, of course there is. It was a horrible question to ask someone who's only played like 1 or 2 seasons, but for you, it's a really horrible question. You mentioned again, some people wouldn't quite get it, the turning pro and making a choice not to. You're kind of, as you were tailing off, it's kind of coming to the end of that era where people were saying, okay, well, being a pro is very worth it. But when you were working, as you said, it was a choice to say, well, actually, do I want to do that, or can I get some money from Sutton and concentrate on my career? Because you were, is it insurance?
Legal and general.
Yeah. So you're the briefcase at the front of the...
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Did you actually have a briefcase, or did they actually make you just carry around the briefcase everywhere?
I did have. The only thing was I had nothing in it.
Sandwiches.
It was all for show. Yeah, in answer to your question, I don't know. It was a kind of a separation in those days. You were non-league or you were pro, and there wasn't a lot of merging, and it's very difficult to come from a non-league side to a pro side. And I don't know if that was just face or you got missed as going through the system. I don't know. But this day and age, because of what happens with people coming in and putting a lot of money into clubs, you could go like anywhere along the non-league bit. You've got pro club or clubs training full time, which makes a huge difference. But in our time, it didn't happen a lot. Joycey went to Maidstone for a year, and they were full time, but they were in what would be the National League now. So there wasn't that many people who stepped up. Having said that, in the current era, you've got your Paul Rogers, you've got your Nicky Baileys, who have done it because it was more accepted then, and they're good players as well, obviously. Very.
Yeah. One of the articles I managed to find on you was you talking about a young Nicky Bailey coming on, and we had some high hopes for him, and I was like, oh my goodness. So it was an old newspaper report for, I can't remember which game it was, but you were talking afterwards, so that the youngster Nicky Bailey, and I was like, youngster? Oh yeah, okay, I've got to remember. Obviously, you were there for a year or two. Was there any particular supporters or areas of the ground that were particularly supportive or negative to you at the team when you were playing or coaching? Could you hear what they were saying? Or
Another good question. I think when I played, they were really good to me. You have the odd bad game. I was a player. Each game rather than a 3 and 9, I was probably pretty steady, gave my all, and I think we're getting 800s to thousands, and you could hear comments from the crowd. But as I say, I think I don't remember having a barracking or taking any stick. Matt Hanlon, you might talk to him, and you'll understand why he celebrated the way he did again when he got his Coventry goal. They gave him a little bit, but Matt done that, scored the goal, went to Wycombe full time, become a far better player than he was when we played, came back and was excellent. And he's a top man as well, top man.
Yeah, I remember his second spell, him and the aforementioned Nicky Bailey having a little conversation in the middle of the pitch.
Yes.
Yes. So again,
they did shake hands, and in the next game, I took charge. John was away looking at a player. I took charge, and we went over and beat the runaway leaders, Canby Island. And Nicky played. He had to retake a penalty at least twice, and I think 3 times. First person over to him, Matt.
Yeah, honestly, I know everyone they clutch their pearls when they see it, but I'm like, it's fine. There's absolutely no problem as far as I'm concerned. As long as they sort it out, then not a problem as far as I'm concerned. This one, are there any stories? Now, you can choose whether you want to be from when you were coaching or when you were playing. Stories from the training ground or dressing room or nights out that the passing of time allows to be shared. You
Most
don't have to name names.
I don't remember any that were outrageous, apart from the Italian one and the journey back from Peterborough. The coach was rocking one side to the other, so all the way back. The only kind of funny thing, and I don't know if I mentioned it before, but when we were playing just before the Sutton game, and we were walking off, and different people were talking to people, and for some reason, someone said to Len, "There's going to be a large police presence today." And then after the game, when it all kind of calmed down, he said, "Well, the only thing is, I didn't get the present." So take what you will from that. I'll tell you, no, there is one other one. There is one, and I'll let him work. You'll let him tell. We were having a particularly poor spell when I was playing. Barry was in charge, and he'd sat us down around the changing room. It's only before we went out training or after we finished training, and we were trying to get a bit of a decent, was playing a bit better than we were, and he starts off at the goalkeeper, Trevor Rocky, when you played against so and so, and you were coming out, you were demanding, got the ball, distributed it, you need to get back to that, and then he was kind of edging his way round, come to me, and you need to play like you did when you're there, and as he was going round, he was kind of running out of things to say, so we get round, and obviously I don't know who knows, but Joycey, sometime previous to this, score. We beat Leatherhead 11-1, and he got 9. And missed 2 sitters to get 10, like embarrassing. And John scored 2 and got booed by our own supporters for scoring 7. So anyway, so he's going around there, and he's running. He's virtually just saying a team that you've done well with, and he just got to Joyce, who was sitting there, and he went Leatherhead, and Joyce just went fish face. Like, and Barry's gone on to the next person, McKinnon. And then the whole dressing room's just collapsed. And so whoever was in that dressing room, if you ever say to one of them, Leatherhead, they will call you a fish face. And it's all down to Joyce.
I think it was young Matt who had mentioned a couple of stories. One was you, when he was, him and a couple others had come out of one of the nightclubs, and they were a little bit worse for the wear. And next thing they've hailed a cab, and you're get in. And they're like, uh-oh. And another one, he spoke very, very highly of John. Again, said so many people wanted to play for Sutton because of John.
Yeah.
And he said he was telling one particular story. I forget the name of the player he's talking about. We just conceded from a corner, and he sort of went, "Yeah, I should have picked him up." And he said it was about egg sandwiches. I should have picked him up from that corner, and the whole changing room just went silent, and your brother ended up throwing the whole egg sandwiches or something, dropping down his face, and Matt was crying as he was telling the story years later. So
Yeah.
He said he didn't do it that often, but
no, he didn't do it often, but when he did, you knew.
And I was told, I can't remember who told me this one. There was another one about him when he was managing, he was putting the team in, and you were like, "Can I just see that team sheet? Are we not playing with a left back today then?"
I don't remember that. I'd been out on the pitch doing the coaching. But,
forgetting which players were playing.
Probably, yeah.
So do you feel, and I think I know the answer, but do you feel that in your time with all the different teams that you were part of, that we overachieved, underachieved, or did about right with the performances and how we compare with other clubs of a similar size?
Yeah, similar size in ground status, in bigger sides than us, smaller sides than us. But it's a horrible thing to say, but it mostly boils down to finance. And you'll see all the sides. Wrexham this year have come in; they've got massive backers now, and then Notts County are flying away. And you've got the Aldershots who have gone down because they didn't get some backing and this, that, and the other. And I've always say that whatever league you look at, if you put the name of the side and their wage bill a week and put it in order, roughly, that's how the season would finish. Particularly at our level, if you get to the top level now, if you give it paid 50 grand a week or 75 grand a week, it doesn't really matter. If we were, it's got to be said that some of these players, or all of the players, were going home to wives, kids, mortgages, and the extra 10 or 15 quid was important. So it worked like that. But going back to what you said, I'm not sure whether I mentioned who it is, but it came down, and John spent a period of time and the nitty gritty, and he went, "Well, I'm sorry, John. I like what you said, but I've got a wife, and I'm being offered X, Y, Z somewhere else." And John went, "Fine. Doesn't work out. Come back." He was back on the Thursday because he liked what he saw. I'll tell you, this is Andy Ryan, and he's what a good player he was, and he loved it. He loved it. I'm sure he won't for it.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, no, it's again, he's going to love it if he listens to this. His name's come out so often. The sort of time when Nicky was here, and we had a really strong young side who were really, really ambitious, and it was at the time we can't afford to pay them the extra money. There was a little bit sort of like, oh, we're never going to achieve anything. We're always going to be a club playing at a lower level. But then I look at the examples of like Kingstonian around us at the time, where they spent loads and loads of money, and then look at what's happened now. But you were sort of in the middle of that. How was that for you guys, knowing that we've got a really good group of players, but we just couldn't keep them because of money?
It's what you've got. So what was never done at Sutton, I don't know if it's done now, not done at Sutton, is you would never go into Dave Hearn, the chairman, Bruce or whatever, and say, well, I need X, Y, and Z and that and the other. He would quite simply say, you've got your budget. That's what you started with. That's what you agreed to. And that was that. So what John was really good at was just shifting a player in for 6 weeks, a month. who wasn't getting a game for, say, Aldershot or one of the pro sides around us, maybe Chelsea reserves or something like that, and he'd get him in. Peter Fear springs to mind in latter times. 50 odd Premiership games, and he'd come and played and helped us. And there was several players like that you could do, and he done that. What he did do, or I'm going to have to go on a we on this. We did reject a player that wasn't bad, and we thought it might not suit our style. And it was offered to us from QPR for a period of time. So do you want to hazard a guess?
No, go on.
Peter, big tall lad.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we turned down Peter Crouch basically. So, but he was that good. He wouldn't have lasted long because he'd played 2 or 3 games and someone else would have come in for him. But yeah, we have to, as the good signings come in, as Efe Nkuku comes in and walks off the wreck and says, "Can I have a game?" As John signs a couple of people, then you got to put it the other way around as well. When we messed up on.
Yeah, he wasn't that good back in the day. It's all right. So I suspect this question, the one moment Sutton fans will remember you for, is going to be, as we've discussed, the Coventry game. But
sorry, the London Senior Cup final. Yeah.
That's what I was going to. If you could put the highlight next to your Hall of Fame thing, that one little clip of Tony Raines for 30 seconds or a minute, what would that clip be? What would your clip be? Would it be the goals or?
It's certainly not the goals. Although remind me, I've got a couple of kind of one serious, one not so serious. But I'll tell you what it was. One of the best, and this is a generalisation, and this happened quite often. We what you were talking about earlier about having a push of going and all that, and we went to over there. You can see it, Billericay on. It's hammering down here at the moment where I am, and it was hammering down that night. And if the game had gone on another 10 minutes, it would have been a ban. But we were talking on the coach on the way there, and we had a particularly bad run. Michael Cook was involved with the conversation, and we'd agreed. It's only about 6 games into the season, but we weren't doing well. We said, look, if it don't work tonight, we'll resign. We're not doing well. So 4 yards out in the 89th minute, someone smashed it in, and we scraped home 1-0. And we then went on a game. We then went on something like 24 games without getting beat and winning most of those. And I think we came runners-up that year. I think it was someone, Canvey or someone were miles away from us. Yeah. So that turning point really, probably sitting with John and Cookie and going, a lot of things wouldn't have happened if we'd resigned that day, good or bad.
Yeah, exactly. So all these little moments make up such significant things. I know I saw you when it was quite funny because when you were in the car park at the ladies' match, I kept looking over thinking, I know that bloke, I recognise that bloke. I work in Sutton in a customer facing job, so I was like trying to work out where I'd seen you before, and then your grandchildren I think were sort of being mascots, and part of it was a little tour, and they said to your daughter, I think it was, have you ever been here before? And she kind of just went, oh yeah, my dad's been here 1 or 2 times, and then just suddenly it's like, I know who that is. Do you keep up with the team? Do you kind of look out for the results still, or
all the time? It's the first result you look for. And I speak to Joycey and other people and read and listen to the stuff that's on what you do and match reports afterwards. And I was at Wembley with them last year. How they didn't win, I don't know. But, I do know the referee. Blown up with it, but anyway, it's another issue. So yes, I try and keep on top of it. I get down a couple of they're so good to me. Go down, come down anytime I like. I bring not they like this too much, but I normally have 2 tables of 12. Bring a few of the buyers down from my local pub and area. Also from the Mission area where we used to live, and John's got a lot of people coming from there. So we do that, and then there'll be an occasion game where someone's going to be there, or it's something about the cup, something like that. So I'm not involved in any technical side of that, but I'm certainly not completely on top. I read, I look, and I keep up to speed.
It's so much easier nowadays, because I remember if I didn't make the game, I had to look out. I had to either call that 0891 number or look out for the newspapers and get out a magnifying glass to try and find the results. And now it's like instant. You can be standing on the terrace, you can pick up your phone, you can find out all the results of all the games, live league tables. Just like, this is mad. I'm so jealous of some of these youngsters watching football now. It's like, you don't know you're born. Did you ever think that Sutton would be in the EFL, in the Football League? Did you kind of think they were always going to be just happy bobbing along? Or did you think, no, it will happen one day?
Good question again. Not back in the day, no. I think when, as a player, we got into the conference as it was, or the National League as it is now, basically one before the pros. I think we come seventh first year, and Fulham were towards the bottom of in old money, the old Div 4. And I thought, you know what, I could go back to my old club here. If we win a couple of games and they lose a couple of games, or one of us does, then we could be in the same league, and I could get my own back. And then Mr. Alfire had come in and ripped my idea out the water. But I think what you can do at Sutton now, and there's loads of people, Bruce and Tony Dolbear, Dave and Joyce and Shang and all, Bruce, if I'm mentioning him, and you get I get a flavour from it that there is, and I don't know what it is, but there's a kind of a backer or somebody doing this, that, and the other, and then you think, oh, they can, yeah. And to emphasise that, I think you've probably got more chance with what's going on the pitch, where the ground's a little bit tight. So that needs to be. That's more of the thing that's going to hold them back than the playing staff. And whether they can or can't do it is not an issue, but they will have to. The higher they go, you have to have so many turnstiles, you have to have X, Y, and Z. And that's the bit that might hold them a little bit. But if the backers are still there and that they can put that right, then I can see them going up one league. I think that'd be the limit, but who expected them to go up 2 years ago? So who am I to say?
Yeah, I mean, for some other reason, I looked up attendances 10 years ago and we were averaging 500 and now we're averaging 3,000. And it's to me, walking around Sutton just at a lunchtime, a weekday lunchtime, I will see several people wearing Sutton United stuff, which it wasn't so big back then, but you just wouldn't really see anything. And you would go to games and you might not know every single person's name, but you would recognise other Sutton supporters. Now I'm seeing people at Sutton games, I'm like, who the hell are you? I've no idea who you are. But it's brilliant. It's mad to see these crowds.
Yeah, and if you relate it to the Coventry game, which put Sutton on the map for several years, then these boys have done the same thing.
Yeah,
they've done brilliant, and the manager's very good. I can't speak like they've done. The whole club have done brilliant on the pitch, off the pitch.
Yeah.
But as I go back to my little scenario earlier, it's about the finance. And I don't mean that horribly. It's not there. It's just that they've got to do X, Y, Z to the ground as well as looking after the players, which they obviously do at the moment. I mean, they're a little rushed on to start with, but I know they had a load of injuries and it would come okay. Talking to the people that there, and they've climbed the table, and now they're in touching distance of the playoffs. But
yeah, mad. It's all just all a bit surreal. I've spoken to Matt a couple of times, and he's so organised and everything. And I think after the first time, I was ready to give him 20 minutes myself, and I can't play or run. Kind of wrapping up now. You'll be pleased to know. Here's a question that I loved. Someone put forward: what skills or qualities does a prime Tony Raines bring to the current Sutton United team? So you are in your absolute prime. What are you saying? This is what I can do for you. Right.
So I wasn't the quickest, but I had 2 yards up there. I think what I could also bring Kamari off the pitch as well, which is important.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's all about energy drinks, recovery, drinking water, but we did have a little expression in our day: win or lose, have a booze. If we draw, we'll have some more. And that brings the players together, whether we were coming back on a train from Doncaster or we just played Stafford at our home. So that side on the pitch, I think organisation really. I had some good players around me, and I could tug them in. We could keep a formation as a defence or a unit. Mickey Cornwall was very good for that. We'd start him up front, but if we were getting battered in, he knew what to do. Then he could go forward and play beyond them again. So bit of organisation, bit of kind of kind of taking what Barry would have hopefully said, while he was alive as well, but to do it on the pitch rather than you have to communicate it across. So yeah, there's probably about two assets there, and now I should have said one. Sorry.
That is fine. That's perfect. Yeah. So the team spirit is really, really important. And I said this a few times last year about the current group, and I said, I know it's not technical, I know it's not something you teach, but there is that element of, I better put it in because I'm not having this lot take the piss out of me on the training ground on Monday. So you've got to give that little bit extra. And because they're mates, you can see sometimes when people just play with each other, but when they're mates, you can kind of like, there's just that little tiny bit extra. And we've been lucky at Sutton where we've had so many teams throughout the years. You can go, yep, there's something there. There's been one or two times where you're like, oh, it's just something missing. But generally, we've been really lucky over the years, especially the last 12 years or so as well.
It takes one group of players, and then you're rebuilding. Excuse me, that group of players 8 weeks to get used to themselves, and then the camaraderie and the friendship start to develop, and then you're back where you were.
So for you, when you finished playing, you kind of went into coaching, so you didn't have quite that cut. But what's it been like since you've kind of not been involved so much now?
My life's been pretty good. I've got 7 grandchildren now. Just kind of concentrating on them, and it's keeping in touch with the football is fine. I love all sport, love all football. I will get down to something more and watch games, but it's been just a period where I've had to put my angle on something else, if you like, and which is the kids and the grandchildren. But one of them's not bad, so not bad as it goes. I've got about 6. She's not bad.
Steve said his grandson was very, very impressed that he played for Sutton United, because now Sutton United obviously are up there. His grandson was super impressed, and he was like, "Yep, it's fine." So he was delighted when I said you're on YouTube and TikTok as well now. Thank you so much. I know it was a pain to get together, and I know you've struggled through your illness, so I genuinely thank you so much. I'll let you get off and have some dinner, and I'll let you know when this is out. And it's been a delight and a pleasure to speak to you, Tony.
Thanks, Mike. I feel exactly the same. It's been great talking to you. Have a good evening.
United!